Warning, this episode contains references to sexual content and spoilers for The Last of Us. Hello and welcome to PauseCast, episode 24, our end-of-year wrap-up. It is Thursday, December 29th, 2016. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns. I am not joined by Mark Hanna this week. As I mentioned on our last episode, he is away on holiday. I am, however, joined this week by Harley Quinn, the host of RuneScape Weekly and RuneScape Ladies Night. Harley, it's good to have you back.
Yes, I am glad to be back for a year wrap-up show. I also use she, her pronouns, and very excited to be here.
Also this week, we're joined by another guest. We are joined this week by photographer and Twitch streamer, Autumn Williams. Autumn, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much. It's pretty good to be here. I also use she, her pronouns.
All right. So, oofa doofa, 2016 has been a year, huh?
It has.
That's an understatement.
It sure has been a thing, and I'm kind of glad it's over.
I mean, I don't think we can count 2016 over till it's actually over, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there's still time. There's still time.
2.5 days, or a day and a half. Nearly there.
It can't get worse, though, I don't think.
Don't
don't say
that.
This, I'm gonna jinx it. It's gonna be a problem.
We literally just lost Carrie Fisher.
Oh my god!
And it was right at the end.
I think there was someone else that died today.
Yeah. Today? What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we just lost George Michael. We just lost Carrie Fisher, all in the last week of December.
Yeah, and Debbie Reynolds is now also dead at 84, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
That's
2016 has taken a lot.
Debbie Reynolds, that's Carrie Fisher's mother, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew that she was in the hospital, but I didn't hear that she died. Yeah.
Yeah, Debbie Reynolds is Carrie Fisher's mother.
Jeez.
So she just died yesterday.
Dang.
Or rather today, actually.
Today.
Today.
I missed hearing that news because I heard that she had a stroke or something like that while planning Carrie Fisher's funeral. I mean, I can't imagine. No mother should have to bury their daughter. That's a fucking terrible thing.
Yeah.
And now, oh wow, that's. I feel so bad for. What's her name?
Don't know.
Hmm?
I can say the one thing, the one thing I like to think, it's very sad that we lost Carrie Fisher, but I'm so happy that we got her in The Force Awakens. I mean, her life in general is fantastic, but her role as General Leia Organa was freaking fantastic, and I literally cried at the opening credits of that movie when it started out with her name.
I was also, this is going to lead into one of the first games I want to talk about. She also was revealed by Dishonored director Harvey Smith to have a role in that game.
Oh, wow.
Yesterday. During the mission Return to the Tower, if you kill the propaganda officer who is in the Dunwall Tower, he is replaced over the loudspeakers by Carrie Fisher.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's like a tiny little hidden role.
It's really cool too.
Harvey Smith made that like kind of public knowledge yesterday after her passing.
Mm-hmm. And the name I was trying to figure out was Billy, the daughter of Carrie Fisher. She's gonna have to bury her mother and her grandmother. It's not okay.
That's not.
Off to a heavy start for this podcast, aren't we?
Jesus, yeah. But if there's one thing that's been kind of a constant over the course of the year, it's that video games have been really good this year.
I would say so.
Been like it's been a thing that's been kind of a constant this year. It's kept me grounded. It's like we've had a lot of really, really good video games to kind of escape into.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like, every time I've needed to get away from life as it's been thrown at me, video games are always there, and they definitely help provide a very sound distraction.
I mean, they do a little bit more than that for me personally. They do, like I've talked about on the show how I tend to engage with games as more like a story thing. It's kind of my equivalent of like curling up with a good book.
Mm-hmm.
Except it's just like I'm curling up with a good video game instead.
Oh, I so agree with you.
I totally get you.
I had a conversation with my sister recently who doesn't play video games because I was talking to her, and she's a big reader but not a big video game or movie person. And I was like, I used to feel bad when I was younger that video games fill a lot for me the role that books fill for other people, but I've kind of gotten over that guilt because I've realized there's really nothing wrong with it. It's just it's more modern, so people think it's strange.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, on the previous note of Dishonored, I want to talk a little bit about Dishonored and a little bit of Dishonored 2, if that's okay. I won't talk about it too much because I'm not very far into it, and I know that we want to keep things pretty spoiler-free. But Dishonored has been a lot of fun to revisit this year. That game still holds up. I'm a little bit bummed by the PS4 version. The frame rate can be a little bit inconsistent in some areas. So it's not like the greatest port in the world, but it was really good to be able to like play through that game again. It's still designed like profoundly elegantly and still really holds up.
I really enjoyed that game in my small play. I probably only put like 5 hours into it, and I was trying to do a completionist run, so it wasn't even like I got that far. But that game definitely did some very interesting things.
What specific things are you thinking of?
The whole combat system itself felt unique to me. Just being, it's been so long, I can't think of like all the abilities, but just being like the way you were able to control time and how the fights went, it felt unlike any other video game I've ever played.
Definitely. There's like a certain speed to it, I think. Because you have like on one button you have your on one button you have like like a fire for your ranged weapon, or your powers. On one you have a block, on one you have a really basic attack. So like everything is all accessible really, really quickly. There's no kind of like complex combo system to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you try to like combo a bunch of powers together, or combo like a power and some weapons, like you're gonna get some pretty dope shit happening.
Mm-hmm. And as someone who's never played Dishonored, but who has watched many different people play Dishonored in many different ways, including me watching you play Dishonored every now and then, it's... As from an outsider's view, it's such an elegant game, and the combat system, like you said, Harley, is extremely unique. And the only thing I can think of that had a similar type of combat system was a little bit older game from I think can't remember exactly what year. It was a game called Time Shift. And
right,
it dealt with a lot of like moving around with time and stuff like that. But the way you can blink in, pause time or slow time, deliver a killing blow, and sneak back out without raising any suspicion is so amazing. It's like it's combining Time Shift and Assassin's Creed into a really, really amazing, elegant game that is also very gorgeous. I love the way it's just the colors and everything. How it's like that deep saturation that just it works really well.
Yeah, it's presented really well. Time Shift came out in 2007.
Okay, I was going to say mid-2000s, so a little bit.
Yeah, that checks out.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it fits in kind of with the aesthetic of kind of those years of games where we had a lot of first-person shooters in those years.
Oh yeah, we did.
I mean, let's face it. The 2000s were full of almost nothing but first-person shooters.
Yeah.
They were very heavily.
It was bad.
Halo and Call of Duty spawned a crap ton of FPS. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And like the World War II genre there died out like super quick.
It did.
Like people got tired of that, and then we had to start moving into like modern conflict, which like Call of Duty 4 tried to kind of pioneer.
Yeah, like there's always been you always have your fantasy and your modern, and it was always Halo and Call of Duty, Halo, Call of Duty, and then a bunch of other companies, they started pushing out their FPS titles. It was just like, oh well, I mean, it's basically just a Halo redesign, or this is basically just a Call of Duty redesign. And when you got those rare gems that were just, wow, this is really nice, that it works really well, that it's a first-person shooter that doesn't feel like either of those games.
This year in general, as far as FPSs go, this has actually been a year that's kind of a resurgence in good FPSs specifically. We got things like Overwatch, which I know all of us play a crap ton of. We also got, of course, Titanfall 2, which I've heard good things about, but I haven't gotten to play the single player, but I hear it has some very interesting missions. And we got Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which has one of the first Call of Duties to have a very diverse cast in the campaign itself.
Yeah, we also got Battlefield 1. We got
True.
the new Destiny expansion. So that was a very, very good year of resurgence of, like you said, of good FPSs.
We also got like the best FPS that has been available in years.
Super hot.
But it feels, well, I mean, there's that, but it also like it's another one that feels like enough of a departure from FPSs that it stands out while still kind of adhering to the basics of the FPS genre. I am talking about Doom.
I have not gotten a chance to play Doom, but that game, I watched a lot of it streaming when it first came out, and it did look fun.
Doom is incredibly elegant.
I've yet to play it, but like you keep pushing for me to try and play it. I'll be like, oh man, I don't know what to play. Doom, and I'm like, not yet.
You've
but no, I
gotta
definitely
do it.
See, as someone who played
Doom
3. Yeah, I gotta Doom it. No, as someone who played Doom 3, and that was the first Doom I ever played. I've watched the original Doom get played. I've watched a little bit of Doom 2, and I played Doom 3 quite a bit with my cousins when I lived in Florida, and it was okay. It was alright. I preferred Halo over it, but then seeing the way the new Doom game looked and the way it just looked so much better. It looked so much more intriguing, and the story that it has in it is really cool, and it just looks like so much fun. And I mean, let's face it, I like when I play a game that is shooting, it's either something I want to shoot the shit out of things or have something that has kind of a bit of a story to it, and Doom kind of provides both. Except it has a lot of the shooting the shit out of things.
And like Doom 3 generally has kind of a bad reputation among like fans of Doom.
I do not understand at all, because I freaking loved that game.
I liked
it's because it took on a different tone, right? Like the original 2 Doom games were kind of a little bit more action focused, and then Doom 3 took it into kind of a horror bend.
Yeah, it had a lot more horror. It actually had a lot more story. It had there was a lot more to it. And then that movie, the Doom movie that came out that was based around Doom 3. God. That movie, my goodness.
Terrible. I was going to say, I'm much like Autumn, where Doom 3 was my first Doom game, so I can't really judge it based on the previous ones. I just judge it alone, and that's possibly why I enjoyed it so much.
And Doom, like new Doom, that's my first Doom game. I've not played a Doom game prior.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, I was nervous about it, but it was recommended by Rami Ismail when he was in town. I had the chance to talk to him, and we were talking about how much I did not like how Uncharted played, which I played this year for the first time. I did not like Uncharted 1 through 3, or The Last of Us for like a specific aspect of that game.
Them's fighting
which
words.
was the combat design. The combat, like all the scenario design, was terrible.
I could not disagree. I freaking love The Last of Us combat, like every part of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, like Last of Us is definitely a huge improvement, but it still has sections which were like huge problems when I was first playing that game. So I was very frustrated by the scenario design a lot in The Last of Us. And the same with Uncharted. Like I was really frustrated with that scenario design. And that game was recommended to me on the basis that the design and flow of all the like combat situations in Doom it's incredibly elegant. It's always flowing and there's always a sense of purpose to it.
I will agree with you on the Uncharted series. I bought the Nathan Drake collection when it came out this year. Well, not when it came out, but there was some sale, and I bought it for super cheap. And I think I beat 2 and most of 3, and I had played like 80% of 1 on like the PlayStation 4 streaming service, so I haven't gone back to the first one. But that game series, to me personally, feels a bit overrated. Like the story is okay, but then it's just another white dude in a video game at a certain point.
There's a certain point to that, and Uncharted 3 really hits that, I feel like. I also really like the sense of adventure that Uncharted kind of has. It feels to me like an Indiana Jones movie, which I used to enjoy.
Yeah.
All of the problems that it like definitely has, and Uncharted definitely has its problems too. But I think it maintains that sense of adventure that made Indiana Jones a staple.
I was going to say, and as someone who watched you play through almost all of the Uncharted games, I was there watching you play most of them. That combat system made me want to scream. I could not stand watching you play it.
The first game.
If I ever go visit it, I'm not gonna play 1 through 3 because I got the story. I was there for the story. That's all that matters for me. I'll play 4, but I'm not gonna play 1 through 3. I can't do it. It was so bad watching that. 4 was such a huge improvement on everything that the Uncharted games tried to do. And I'm so glad that I got to play them all in sequence and watch these like gradual improvements happen over the course of all of these games. I just wish they would have happened a little more than gradual.
The amount of
oh yeah, totally.
The amount of anger I felt in the first Uncharted game, because there's some puzzles in there where you're like walking on like super thin things way up in the sky, and like I'll be like, okay, I'm pushing the controller in the right direction, and now I'm gonna jump to the next area. Then it's like, nope, you're gonna jump in the opposite direction of what you're pointing. And oh my god, I got so angry. That game felt so frustrating.
Yeah, the platforming in that game was also just not super great.
It looked very horrible, and like as someone who has a very, very big love-hate relationship with jump puzzles, as someone who did a lot of the jump puzzles in Guild Wars, and who was a big well, as someone who did a lot of like in Halo like 2, 3, and a little bit, I played a tiny bit of Halo 4. Like I was a big person who liked to do like really silly things. We'd play hide and seek and stuff like that, so I was used to doing like kind of my own little mini jump puzzles on different levels. And like getting to those really weird, out of place places. I have a huge love-hate relationship with jump puzzles, but watching those jump puzzles was absolute torture because like it looked so bad. And like Harley said, like you would go in the right direction, you could jump in. Oh, well, I guess I was pressing left there. I didn't remember doing that.
I kind of want to go back real quick to The Last of Us just for a second and say that game, it is literally the only game that I have had to put down and walk away from because I was crying too much and I was far too emotional to go on. There's a scene, and I don't want to go into spoilers in case you haven't played that game, because to me, that's probably what I would say is the best game of all time. I can't think of a game that I think is story-wise, I'm not even talking about mechanics, but the story that unfolds in that game and the way that you can buy into the characters in that game. For me, like it ripped my heart apart, parts of it. But there's a part where you just walk out somewhere and you see some animals, and like this just really beautiful scene unfolds. And like I got to that scene, I got through that part, and I was at my friend's house, and I just turned off his PS3 and went home because I was like, I can't go any further tonight. I got to go home.
Yeah, The Last of Us it's a really emotional journey.
Yeah, like I had when Jess played through it another time, she'd already beat it, and she was playing through it again. I was like, I want to sit down with you and I want to watch you play it, at least where I can at least see every cutscene. And that game sent me on an emotional journey. Just at the very beginning, our friend Alice came over and had started playing a little bit of it, and like that first scene, I was on my computer, I turned around looking, I'm watching the cutscene, and oh my god, the ugly crying came out.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, that game is an emotional roller coaster, but it's gorgeous, and I know that the scene you're talking about, Harley, it's awe. That's all I can say. It's just awe.
Even the first 10, maybe 20 minutes of that game, like there's a twist that like if you weren't paying close attention to all the material, you probably had no idea that what was going to happen happens. And like even that part ripped my heart out. And then like just the way it goes on.
That killed me.
Yeah. And the ending,
I wasn't expecting
I've never
that.
been angrier at the ending of a game. Like not angry at the way it ended, but just like I was physically angry and in the character I was inhabiting and was just like, F this, everybody here is going to die because I am pissed off right now.
I was in shock at the ending. Like there's some theory that the ending is designed to like make you be sympathetic with Joel's kind of like violent outburst at the end. But like I was absolutely not. I was not there. I was not there for the ending of that game.
I didn't even think twice myself. Like I couldn't. Like I was so attached to what was going on that I was like it wasn't even. I didn't even feel like Joel was making the decision for me. I was like, no matter what, this is what I would have done. Like I was just in that place.
See, I like that the choice is there. I didn't agree with it. I like that choice was what was made, and I liked how it was treated in the end of it. Like it was treated as a very final thing. And it ended the game on a kind of shocking note.
It does. And I'm very, speaking of, things in 2016, I'm excited for The Last of Us 2, but I'm also worried because I feel like The Last of Us ended perfectly. And I'm worried they can't live up to that.
That's my concern too. Like, the ending of The Last of Us was final.
But the one thing
it was profoundly final, and now they're continuing it.
I mean, but the one thing I am excited for is that Ellie is a queer character, and to get to play her more in another game does excite me because, if you play The Last of Us DLC, you find out that Ellie is gay, maybe bi. They don't actually, of course, state that fully, but you find out she's at least bi, and that DLC in and of itself was also very touching.
Mm-hmm. I think when I replay The Last of Us, I think I'll try and I'll play through the main story up until the point where Left Behind takes place, and then stop playing the main story, go play the expansion. And I wish they would have done that for the remaster. I wish they would have just included that. When Deus Ex Human Revolution did the director's cut, right? There was a DLC that takes place in the middle of that story. There's a certain point where there's kind of a transition between scenes, and then they released a DLC called The Missing Link, which took place during that transition.
Well, so I don't think it would have worked for The Last of Us, which, spoiler here, so skip ahead a minute if you haven't played The Last of Us, but there's that, you don't know whether or not Joel is dead in the main game. So I feel like if they had put the DLC in there, it would have changed how the game felt, because there's a whole hour or two where you have no idea if he's actually dead or not.
I'm not sure that it would have lost. I don't know. I still think it would have slotted in a little bit better if they had put that straight into the main story. I don't think it would have lost the impact that the next scenes had. Maybe when I replay it, I can find out how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something where I felt like I had no idea where it was going to continue from there. So and I could totally see how other people would interpret it differently because, whether it's a movie or a game or anything, everybody has their own personal connection to how the story's unfolding. So there's definitely you could have read it more open than what I did. But like when I saw what happened, I was like, I don't know where this is going.
Yeah. I agree.
Anyway,
All right.
did we actually cover your points on Dishonored that you wanted to cover? Because we kind of went off on a huge
I think
tangent.
we did.
Okay.
God,
Yeah,
I think
we did.
I hope we covered my Dishonored points.
All right, let's have a moment of silence so you can go in and you can just edit your points back in case we need to. So let's
Okay.
do a little silence here and be like, okay, and we're good.
So I kind of want to go back a little bit too to Superhot, which is a game I have not gotten to play the main game of, but I played the concept of that game that came out a few years ago, and that game blew my mind. Like the little bit of it that they released makes me want to actually play the main game. I haven't been able to afford it yet, but I will definitely buy it when I can. I've never seen a game that takes something that's so familiar to me, the first-person shooter genre. I'm a huge fan of them, as you will find out. Like I said, I played a ton of Overwatch. There's another game I bought this year that I've played a ton of. Like FPSs are Halo is one of my favorite franchises, and Superhot, to take a well-known game type and turn it on its head completely is just amazing to do.
Mm-hmm. And not only did it just turn it on its head, it turned it on its head and did it perfectly, because they took a huge risk with the way they were doing that game and they executed it exactly how it needed to be done. And I've never played it either. I haven't even played the concept, but just it looks so fantastic, and they did it exactly how it needed to be done. And I don't think they could have made it any better, honestly. I can't think of personally anything that they could have changed. The whole idea of taking an FPS and then doing the whole time control thing, like I mentioned before, we had a Time Shift back from 2007. It was an FPS that dealt with a lot of time manipulation and things like that. What Superhot did, it was amazing, and it did it perfectly.
Yeah, Superhot's aesthetic is really cool too.
Oh god, yeah, it has a fantastic aesthetic. The minimalism is A+. I love minimalism.
And in the final game, the concept is kind of like you're playing a game within a game as well, which leads to some interesting kind of ways that you can play around with the expectations of a game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Superhot. It seems like it's really cool. I would have to play the finished version before we can talk about it more. But yeah.
We're on the note of Superhot, though.
Okay.
I'm
nervous
now. Not safe for work video. Not suitable for work. Nick Robinson posted a video on YouTube, about 40 seconds long, or at least I think it's Nick Robinson himself who posted the video. I don't know if it was him or if it was just something he put on Tumblr, but I saw it on my dashboard, and it's a Superhot video of Superhot VR, and you have to watch it. It is fucking hilarious, and there's a caption that goes with it. There was a guy that was in news a year or two ago, that a man, while on meth, fought off 12 cops while masturbating. And that is basically what happens in this video.
Yeah, I found it actually.
Okay, can you please watch that video real quick? And I need your opinions on that video, because that is absolutely hilarious, and I am so glad that it happened, because it's so good.
I mean, shoot me a link in Discord and I'll watch it.
Yeah, it is posted by Nick Robinson, who works at Polygon, and the video is just called Time Moves Only When You Move. So hopefully you can find it on YouTube. But God,
okay.
so it's
what the hell?
Oh,
it's terrible. What a nightmare.
Nick.
Thank you,
and why? That's all I can say, Nick.
I gotta say, Nick Robinson and all of the Polygon boys have been putting out some really, really good stuff this year as well.
Everyone at Polygon is like, I feel weird being like, I feel kind of odd being on the podcast, and I feel kind of odd talking about a lot of video game stuff, because like I'm not one who does more than just plays video games at face value, just takes them for what they are. I don't do anything about reading up on games unless it's like a couple specific 2 games or 3 games. I don't do a lot of video game podcasts. But watching the videos and what I've seen from everything that Polygon does, it is some of the most amazing, wonderful, hilarious stuff. And I love all of them. I love them all so much.
I'm just going to say that Simone de Rochemore in SEO play has just increased my crush on Simone de Rochemore in general. But that series...
Simone de Rochefort is amazing.
She is.
Yeah, I love her. She's, oh my god. Like...
Yeah, SEO Play is a fantastic series.
I'm sorry, I'm a huge lesbian, and geez, like that woman, like, oh my god.
Yeah,
her sense of humor and delivery is just it's expert.
It is. It really is.
She's good at what she does, and it's a good thing she does what she does, because no one else could probably do it as good as she does.
Also on Polygon, we have like Monster Factory, and this year they introduced Carboys. Which, both of these are, like, incredible series. Monster Factory has been running for a while. It is still the funniest thing on the internet. And Carboys is also ongoing, featuring one of the Monster Factory boys. Like, it's amazing. These guys are putting out such, like, interesting stuff about
it is
kind of like specific video games.
It is
specific video game
top-notch
things.
Content. And I suggest everyone...
Hashtag content.
I suggest everyone check it out, because, like, oh god, like, if you like video games, and you like comedy, and you like 2 people talking about stuff and being absolute silly shitheads, like please go watch Monster Factory. Please go watch Carboys. They are both super funny, and like if you know anything about the McElroys, you'll love both of these. Like if you like McElroy content, you'll love both of these.
It's really good, like improvised humor.
Oh, it's the best.
I thoroughly enjoy everything that the folks at Polygon are doing at the moment with their video team.
Well, so to turn it back slightly to SEO play, I got caught up tonight, and one of the episodes I had missed was the Stardew Valley episode, and Simone talking about Stardew Valley versus Harvest Moon, and like there was like, is Stardew Valley like Harvest Moon? And her joke of, no, well yes, but it's 100% more gay, and I'm playing it, which was fantastic.
yeah. And like the first thing when she said that, the first thing I went and was like, I there's no way she can be straight. Because like
I believe that she is
like
bisexual from what I have. I think she said that.
I don't know if she's ever said it. Like I don't know, but I agree with her. Like
she said that she's bi.
I've hardly played any of Stardew Valley. I need to visit it again, and that's actually I was actually going to mention Stardew Valley in the games I've played this year, but like. I was so upset when I found out a certain character is not romanceable, because I was like, oh no, lady, I am so gay for you.
Well, that's like at the end of her Stardew Valley episode 2. Like her joke the whole time is that she's going to disappear when that game comes out. And the end of her Stardew Valley episode is literally just text that says, missing Simone de Rochemore. If found, please contact Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. God, Stardew Valley was really good. And there was actually an interview that was done with the creator of Stardew Valley, Eric Barone, otherwise known as Concerned Ape, and the creator of Harvest Moon. And they got together in, like, the same room. And they had the chance... They had the chance to play each other's games.
Oh, that sounds really fantastic and adorable.
Yeah, and, like, the creator of Harvest Moon... said of Stardew Valley that it was like a powered up Harvest Moon, and that he really, really enjoyed it. Like,
that's good.
They have the blessing of the creator now.
That the story of that game is like the story that like it that makes me love games, and especially indie games. You know, it's a game that like literally one person made, and he made it to learn a new programming language, and the game fucking blew up more than he could possibly imagine, and he's had so much success.
Yeah, definitely.
And it warms my heart to think about the story of that game.
Mm-hmm. He's had such a like clear vision for the development of that game. Like all throughout the process, he had this idea of this genre is on the decline. So why don't we do something that'll bring it back up?
Mm-hmm. And it's such a heartwarming, fresh callback to that genre too. Like it does it so well, and it's so sweet.
I'm really glad that game exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's joyous.
Me too.
I also like that you can basically romance every single person in that game before you marry anyone, so you could basically kind of in a way have a poly relationship, and I think that's really awesome.
I bet you there's probably like a mod for poly relationships.
There's probably a mod for that. That would be really cool.
I haven't gotten to actually play the game yet, but it did just come out on PS4 recently, which means at some point I will be buying it.
Oh. Yeah,
it'll probably be like a PS Plus thing at some point.
You're right.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you have
God.
PS Plus, it might possibly do that. They might probably put it on the PS Plus, like, hey, this is the game you get this month. It's like, oh, Stardew Valley.
One thing I've heard though is that the PS4 kind of controller support and the Xbox controller support as well is still like not great.
Oof.
Gotcha.
So it may actually be more worthwhile for you to pick it up on PC at some point.
I don't know if I don't know if my computer could run it well enough. I mean, that isn't a necessarily graphically intense game, but I think it still has some modern things to it that might make. I mean, I have a 6-year-old MacBook Pro, so it's hard to tell if I could run it.
You can run Overwatch, right?
I haven't tried Overwatch on the Mac. Well,
oh
on
no,
the
you
PC.
played on
Yeah.
you played on
Harley plays
PS4,
on PS4.
right?
Yep, I'm a console scrub.
Well, I think Stardew Valley shouldn't have any problems running, to be honest.
I think if you can run RuneScape, you can probably run Stardew Valley.
Yeah, that checks out.
I will say that only because like, what would make Stardew Valley hard to run per se on your computer? RuneScape's already got that. Like, RuneScape is not the most. I wouldn't say it's the most optimized game, and I mean like NXT made it a lot better than the Java client, but like it's still it's a lot more intensive than Stardew Valley would be. So I'm pretty sure you could probably run Stardew Valley.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's got very intense system requirements, so you should be all right. So now let's move into Overwatch, the shooter that we have all been playing this year. I was playing a bunch of it last night, actually, up until about 5 o'clock in the morning.
Jeez, that's when you went to bed? Okay.
Yeah, that's when I went to bed. That's why I was up at like 2 p.m.
Yeah, you were up pretty late.
I feel like we should say,
Overwatch is getting
for clarification, people who don't know, that Autumn and Jess are partners because...
Yes, and
yeah.
we do live together in the same place.
Yes, yeah. We are engaged, and it is a wonderful little household of three nerds. There's a third person here, but we are definitely two nerds who play way too much video games.
They deserve Cutest Couple of the Year award.
Whatever.
Let's move swiftly on so I don't have to acknowledge this.
Anyways, so Overwatch, like, I know me and Jessica play it on PC, and Harley, you play it on PS4. I know, Jessica, for a while you were doing only controller, and you recently moved on to mouse and keyboard, where I only play it with mouse and keyboard. And so, like, I know, Harley, you play it with controller only, so we kind of have a frame line of, hey, I do mouse keyboard, Jess, you've done both, and Harley, you've only done one, so we can kind of compare from there. How does how does the controls work, do you feel, Jess, between mouse and keyboard and on the controller? Like, how do you feel that really plays into Overwatch?
I'm still bugged by the fact that I have to use mouse and keyboard to be at any sort of competitive level because it adds that extra like the precision and speed.
Yeah.
You
A
just
controller,
need to.
like you can get some really good precision and speed off of it, but
Compared against
It's-
other people using mouse and keyboard, it is unfair.
yeah,
You just need to
it's
hurry up
not
and buy it on the
well-balanced for me.
PS4 so that we can play together, and then you can use a controller to your heart's content.
I know, right? And then I'd actually be like really, really high up and competitive as well.
You would.
But like, Harley, I got a question for you as well. Do you have the ability to rebind for specific heroes on?
Yep.
On there?
And that's actually one of the things that I find big about the game personally. There's a lot of people who I play with who don't rebind a lot, but the way I've adapted Overwatch is I play a ton of different characters, and every character I play has very specific keybinds based on their specific needs, which I find makes it much better. The one character that's very hard to play on a controller still for me is Genji. He seems like a character that is very much of a keyboard and mouse kind of build.
Genji really needs like high sensitivity to play him.
like
That too.
His whole thing is gotta go fast. He's like Sonic, but for Overwatch.
Yeah, for me, like it's really weird because like the only thing like talking about FPSs and controllers and stuff like that, like Overwatch is the first FPS I've ever really actually played without using a controller. I was huge on Halo. I was big on other like FPS shooters for consoles. So this is the first time and I played TF2 a lot, but like I used a controller for some of it and I didn't play it very much and I wasn't very good at it. And now I do competitive play in Overwatch. I stream Overwatch all the time and I learned it with mouse and keyboard and I play it really well. But like, yeah, the only thing I have keybind as far as like different bindings is I have everything the exact same, and for the longest time I was having everything the exact same, except only recently I've changed sensitivity for certain characters to different things. Like I've lowered McCree's sensitivity really low, and it's helped my aim a lot. I main Reinhardt a lot, so I've upped my sensitivity just a little bit so I can move my shield around just a bit faster and make the blocking on like Junkrat tires and like quick moving tracers and Genjis and things like that a little easier. But for the most part, all my controls, I leave everything the same because I use a mouse for everything. I have a Razer Naga and I have every single ability aside from moving and jumping bound to my mouse, including all the emotes and stuff. So like everything is on my thumb.
Yeah,
so
you are lucky
for me,
there.
it's literally just only my thumbing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, let's get off the topic of like the minutia of Overwatch, and let's talk about like just the game broadly. I want to talk about its art style really quickly.
Love it.
Like, Overwatch is probably it's probably my most played game of the year. Like it feels like it's the game that I've put the most time into. It's gotten me back into like the social aspect of playing games because I still tend to play more solo games, but Overwatch has definitely got me into that social aspect again. And it's got a gorgeous, very cartoony art style, which that sort of style has seen a resurgence as we've come into the next like console generation. We've started to see like more exaggerated styles alongside more realistic styles, and it's good to see that return to form because hyper realism gets boring after like we have The Witcher 3. That's the peak. We did it. We hit photorealism, everybody. We can stop and like do more interesting things with art instead of trying to be realistic.
As far as the Overwatch art style goes, that is definitely something I love about it, is the cartoony approach. I think it's something that Blizzard has always been good at. As somebody who played World of Warcraft for 5+ years now, like that game is a very artistic take on things. And Blizzard does that because it helps games age so much better too. Like you look at any other game from 2005, I think it is when World of Warcraft came out, and it looks like crap. But you look at World of Warcraft, even in 2005, and because they went so artistic with it, it holds up so much better. And Overwatch itself is a game that's meant to last 10, 20 years even. So, why go for ultra realism when that won't hold up in 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the biggest single failing of a hyper realistic art style is that it doesn't age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'll look fine for a couple years, and then when you go back to it, it's going to be like, oh, well, the graphics have advanced so much more, and, like, this looks like shit now. Oh, it's not as good as I remember it.
Like,
But then you go back and play things like, maybe, like, your Baldur's Gate, or, like, you go and play anything with a really exaggerated cartoony style. Like, even Diablo still holds up. Even, like...
Well, Diablo isn't so much cartoony, but it's
it's
old
still
gothic
exaggerated.
style. It's exaggerated. But the two games I will always bring up, neither of which I've actually played, but I've watched one played extensively, like multiple times through. One I just know a lot, and I adore the art style, is Wind Waker and Okami.
Yeah, Wind Waker is a good example of, like, that game.
Mhm.
That game will hold up forever.
Yeah, and Okami then has an amazing art style, and it's the big, broad strokes, like brush stroke type style art of it works so well, and it still holds up now. Like, you look at it now, and it looks like, if you look at the game from when it came out, it looks like something that could have easily been made today because of the artistic style that they went with, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as Overwatch goes, what are your... I don't know if you actually know this, but what character do you have most hours played on in Overwatch?
Well, for me...
I go between everyone. Like, I fill whatever roles are required of me. So if we need a healer, I can play healer. We need some defense, I can play defense.
Do you have a favorite character
like,
that you would prefer to play?
No favorites, because if I play favorites, that makes me kind of like less strategically viable to slot into any situation. I need to kind of know everything.
That makes sense, and like that's one of the things I've always said, and what I've heard a lot of people say is, if you play only one character ever in Overwatch, you're playing the game wrong.
Absolutely,
because you gotta know at least 3 or 4 characters.
Like,
you should at least be able to fit into 2 roles.
There's so many times when I would talk to my friends who play in Overwatch, and they're like, "I was playing this match, and we were getting our asses kicked, and so I switched to a character, and I'm only mediocre at them, but we won the game." And it's like, exactly, like the way Overwatch works, like a switch can throw off the enemy team just completely, and so having the ability to even be like half good at another character is totally viable. What about you, Autumn? Do you have a main that you like the most, or do you know whose hours you play the most potentially?
I can actually give you definite answers on this. For me, as far as competitive goes, I main all the supports. I play Reinhardt and I play Mei. Now, I also for competitive season 2, I played a lot of Junkrat as well, but I haven't really played him as much this season. And if I ever have to do offense, I play Pharah or 76. Because those are the 2 main ones you need. You need someone who can do some splash damage, and you need someone who can have hit scan, which is, for anyone who might not know what hit scan is when you have bullets that, like, you shoot and it's instantly at the target. It doesn't have any travel time. And I can play both of those. Right now, I think currently in the competitive season, I have most hours in Reinhardt. I've been playing a lot of tank lately, but I think second is Mercy. As far as what character I like the most, would probably have to either be Mei, Mercy, or Pharah. I love all those, and I like Reinhardt a lot too. Reinhardt's the only one I have a golden weapon for. I've got the gold hammer for Reinhardt because it's sick as fuck. But like I play all the supports a lot. Unless I'm playing with people who also main support, I am pretty much always the support on a team whenever it's competitive. And even in quick play, I'll play a lot of support. And in quick play, it's either always me going on support, Hanzo, or Pharah. So I'm big about supports. I've been that in like a lot of MMOs as well. In World of Warcraft, I was always a healer. So
what I've found in Overwatch personally on PS4, I think is the thing about the PS4 version versus the PC version it is very different in how it plays in many ways, like more different than some people would think. In fact, and I have found that support characters are honestly picked more often than tanks. So one of my biggest roles, and by far my favorite character in the game, is Diva. That she's the character I have the most hours with. I have 200 hours, I think, in Overwatch, and I have 31 hours with Diva. So I have it pretty equally spread out among a bunch because, as you all do, I will also switch up depending on what the team needs. I've learned, like, Diva is definitely my favorite tank to play. I play a ton of Reinhardt because Reinhardt's so indispensable in Overwatch, which is possibly one of the most unfortunate things to me in the game because, like, having 2,000 health on a shield, like, it's such a giant advantage that it's hard to give up, especially when you're playing at a high level. The other character that I main a lot is Reaper, which is kind of a more recent development because I noticed in competitive that, like, a problem that a lot of my teams would have is that they were just not putting out enough damage. And the thing about Reaper is he's a close range character, but when you're close, he can two-shot like so many characters.
Yeah. Reaper is the highest of the damaging characters. Me and one of my girlfriends, like, we've gone over this a lot, and we've talked about it. Currently, right now, the highest DPS character is Diva. The second highest is Roadhog, only because of how much damage, if you hit with every single one of his shells, and it's a headshot, he does the most damage in a single shot, but he shoots so slow, and he only has 4 shots. But Reaper is the third most damage done, and he can one-shot every DPS if he shoots him in the head. He can one-shot, I think, every defense character, even Mei, if he gets him in the head. No, I don't think he can get Bastion in one shot, and he can one-shot every support, and he can two-shot every tank, but Zarya, Diva, and Reinhardt. And the only reason is because Zarya's going to be able to shield the second she gets shot, and Reinhardt just has enough health and shield to be able to tank it, and Diva just, she has her mech, and then she gets taken out of mecha, and she's not actually dead.
And one of the changes on the console is I think every character has more health on console versus PC, so I'm not sure that Reaper can one-shot any of the characters, but I could be wrong about that. On console, of course, specifically.
I hate to pull you off, but we are getting into the minutia again pretty deep.
Yeah, we are.
So we need to keep this pretty general, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
I feel like
it's all good.
I feel like I need to shout out the amount of women in Overwatch is fantastic. I have a problem with how they're all, hourglass figure women, but just the fact that there's such an amount of them is amazing.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even though, like, if most guys are going to be like, well, they're not all hourglass women, like, look at Mei, look at Zarya. I'm like, no, Mei is an overweight character, and yes, Zarya is a character that has shit tons of muscle, but they're still hourglass type figures.
Yeah, Mei is not actually overweight. The reason she looks overweight is literally because of the coat she's wearing. But if you look, like, Blizzard has like official guidelines for how to draw these characters, and drawing Mei out of her coat, she is an hourglass figure character, 100%, and same with Zarya.
Yeah, like, and I have some other issues with Blizzard as far as both the women and men. One is how some of their skins are fairly racist. There's some whitewashing in some of the skins. There's some icons that, like, if you're a certain character, the icon doesn't match the skin color it should be. So some things, like, sometimes the icon art is a little bit weird. And there's a lot of, like, first I want to say it's amazing. If most people probably know this now, Tracer is confirmed to be in a same-gender relationship.
She's a lesbian.
Yeah, she's confirmed lesbian.
She's
confirmed officially that she's a lesbian.
Okay, so it is confirmed that she is a lesbian, not bi.
Yes.
As well, like, while that's all great and all, there is a lot of queer baiting that goes on within the game. In some of the interactions between a couple characters, specifically Hanzo and McCree, which is considered one of the biggest ships within the fandom, and which I guess I ship it, I don't know. But like the people love the fact that like in the fandom and stuff like that those two are together. There is not canon. As far as I'm aware, they're both canonically straight. But, like, the voice lines, they talk very... how would I put it? They talk very flirtatiously towards each other in several voice lines. And there's a lot of kind of baiting that goes on with that. Like, they're like, no, they're not gay, but then they put on this voice line that makes it sound like he's completely, like, not even, like, oh, you might be reading it the wrong way. It is very flirtatious, the way one of the lines McCree says to Hanzo, and it's not okay. And then there's the lines between Mei and Zarya that are very flirtatious, but we don't have any confirmation that either of them are gay or bi or like multiple gender loving people. Like there's a lot of baiting that goes on, and it kind of bugs me a little.
I don't agree with you fundamentally.
I mean, I see. It's hard to read the exact issue, but I see some of the broader aspects of it for sure. I mean, I can't speak to characters specifically, but the way Blizzard in general handled, like, I do like how they made Tracer gay. I do like the fact they came out in a comic, but the way that they like pre-announced that like one of our characters is going to be gay was kind of a bit silly to me.
Yeah, it's very pandering.
Not how I would describe it again. Like, that is actually, like, that is what I would describe as baiting. Like, that's like, oh yeah, one of our characters is gay, we're not announcing it yet, but we promise, and that's the bait. And
it feels like they're just trying to get a token rather than inclusion.
I don't agree.
Yeah, I guess I will try to move us on from this a little bit and just say, the one thing I find amazing about the whole Tracer thing in general is the fact that in 2016, the game of the year for 2016 for most publications, and one of the best-selling games literally has a lesbian on the cover of it, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
It is very amazing.
It's good. Like, representation it's important, but so is like proper characterization. And I think Overwatch is getting to a point where we have the representation in Overwatch, but now it's like we're at a point where now it's time to add more characterization to it.
And I feel like this is something Blizzard has always been like kind of struggle with, is like where they go. Like, to me, Blizzard has been a company that's always been good at putting women in their games, but then they over-sexualize every single one of them. Or something like that.
Hideo Kojima.
I mean, that too.
Well, that too, but I mean, specifically, like, while we're talking about Blizzard games,
yeah,
I don't think there's a single Blizzard game that does not have skimpy armor women.
Yeah.
That checks out.
Like,
when you start playing, like, Diablo 3 as a monk, like, you are, like, you have, like, cloth rags around your, like, breasts and nether region.
And, like,
okay,
in that
but
game.
like
that's
the
skimpy
witch
armor.
doctor. The witch doctor literally has nipple indentations on the cloth bra type thing that is covering. It has literal erect nipple like marks. It is visible.
And one thing is,
and while Diablo, there's always been. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say is one thing is like I would be totally okay with this if the men were equally as sexualized, but there's not a single man in Overwatch who is sexualized. Not a single one.
See, I like ideally we would have kind of neither. Like, it's not a great look for men nor women, nor like folks of the non-binary like variety. Like, it's not a super good look most of the time.
I mean, I feel like there is space for games that would have both. And I would love if games had both. I get uncomfortable when games only have like, women that are super sexualized, personally.
Let's look at Lady Killer in a Bind. Like, there is a game that is like explicitly about sexualization and sex, but like it's also an entirely separate entity. It's not trying to blend into an
It
existing
literally classifies itself as an
world
adult
where
game.
like like it's not trying to blend into a world of like fantasy or sci-fi where it's just like, oh, this sexualization is occurring for literally no reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this is explicitly about sex. It is a separate thing here.
And hey, game developers, can we please stop with the boob armor? Like, that is, like, the dumbest thing. It looks bad, but two, like, it is literally the worst armor you could come up with. It would destroy your sternum if you got hit in it. It would actually kill you a lot faster than just a blow to, like, normal armor. Like,
and I was something too, as a fat woman. Hey, game developers, can we stop making fun of fat people? Because to me, the character that makes me feel the worst in Overwatch is Roadhog, by far. He's a character that literally embodies every fat-phobic trope out there. Like the fact that he is, his main skins are based on being a pig. Like that's the whole thing that we always do to be fat-phobic with fat people is like, oh, look at this pig out there. And his freaking, the way he talks, the way he breathes, the way he plays with his freaking stomach sometimes, it's all completely disgusting.
The voice line where he says piece of cake, like that's...
like there's... Simultaneously, there seems to be a little bit of charm to Roadhog kind of as a character broadly, but there is also like it's absolutely rooted in fat-phobic tropes.
Well, I mean, and there definitely
like,
some charm. Like I love the Junk Hog relationship. Like I find it freaking adorable.
Oh, definitely.
But the fact that he's like, I mean, it mainly comes down that he's literally based on a pig, which is just the most fat-phobic trope you can possibly get in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not great. It really is not great.
And I also do want to say, like, of course, we're talking about a game that all three of us love, like, no doubt. And I am happy that Blizzard tries as hard as they do because fucking God knows most game developers don't try at all.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that in the coming year, in 2017, I think that we're going to start to see like 2016 to me has kind of seems to have kind of proved to game devs like, hey, like having a cast of diverse characters is kind of important and good and like helps out your game like a lot. It helps you flesh out everything a lot. And I think we're going to see more of that in 2017, and I think it's going to be more important than ever that we see it in 2017.
I honestly think we have seen slightly more and more increase in the past few years, and it's hard to tell, but I feel like some of that is backlash to the horrible, Gamergate movement that we had a few years ago that's still ongoing, of course, but like, when men got pissed off because they were still the main focus of video games, but felt like they were being slightly encroached upon, and that all the terrible shit that spawned out of that. And I feel like, like we saw soon after that, we saw the first Tomb Raider game come out, which is just an amazing story of a woman herself overcoming adversity and going through terrible, terrible shit. And she's not sexualized in that game, and she's freaking badass.
Mm-hmm.
Tomb Raider released around the time of Gamergate? I think Tomb Raider was released before.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Like, Tomb Raider was 2013, yo.
Okay.
And then I'm pretty sure Gamergate, like, spawned in 2014. We had Rise of the Tomb Raider come out last year.
You were right.
In November.
You were right. It was 2013. So I'm probably getting my dates a little bit wrong there.
Maybe you're thinking of Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Because that came out about a year after Gamergate kind of spawned.
Yeah, and there was examples too of since I'm wrong about Tomb Raider, but like things like Shadows of Mordor. It first came out with just a male protagonist, and then the developers ended up fixing that after they heard people saying, "Hey, can't we play as a woman?" They released a woman in that game.
Still the most boring game of 2014.
I enjoyed that game, but I can understand.
That's fair. Like, I've got beef with that video game. I have a lot of it. but I will not air that beef here.
I will
think that is for the best.
I will move us on, since we're talking in the first-person shooter genre, of a game that I very recently just bought, and that is the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare Legacy Edition.
Infinite Worcestershire.
Worcestershire. I'm only a little bit drunk, you know? So Infinite Warfare, the Legacy Edition, which comes with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered, which we talked about a little bit earlier. That was the first FPS that I ever got to play by myself, because I finally had a job. I could afford to pay for Xbox Live. My parents would never get it for me. Got it on my own. Spent hundreds of hours playing that game. And I just, on the 26th, I think it was, went and picked up Infinite Warfare and got Modern Warfare Remastered. And I've got to say, if you played that game before, or even if you hadn't, it is such a fun game to play multiplayer-wise. The multiplayer is one of the most balanced multiplayers I've ever played. There's not a ton of perks and stuff you can put on that will give you a huge advantage. It's very well balanced. The single-player story in and of itself as well is a story that actually shows you the horrors of war. Like, there's literally a scene in that single-player campaign where a nuclear bomb goes off, and you get to control the character who is near that blast radius, who is suffering from the radiation from that. And it is a moment that when I first played it, just it's still ingrained in my mind from doing it. And it's so well done as to show the actual horrors of war instead of just glorifying it like we see in a lot of modern shooters.
Oh, exactly. Like, I never played any of the Call of Duty games other than Call of Duty 3. When I first got my Xbox 360, when I first got it, I had Call of Duty 3, and I played that game all day, all night, from the second I got it, and it was fantastic when I played it. And I mean, like, I've the first-person shooter games have never been really my biggest thing. Like, I played a lot of Halo 3. That was my second one I ever played. I played through Halo 1, Halo 2 with my cousins. When I first moved to Florida, they had it, and they introduced me to it, and I loved it. And we got Halo 3, and I loved it. I played online multiplayer a ton. I got really good, and there was of course balance issues. There was, some things were way too overpowered. Sometimes they weren't. But I mean, like that's gonna happen in a lot of the older first-person shooters. But like first-person shooters up until really Overwatch were never really my thing. Like, I always was a big fan of puzzle games and sandbox and survival and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard a lot of good about the new Call of Duty.
That's something I actually forgot to mention when we were talking about Overwatch. Is one of my favorite things about it is that it is a game that is designed for people of all skill levels. You do not, like, most FPSs are like, if you're not good at hit scan, you're fucked. You can't play this game. But Overwatch is, you're not good at hit scan? Okay, well then just play Mercy or play Reaper, because Reaper is not a hit scan character. He's a get in close and use shotguns. D.Va, not hit scan, you know? You talk about, there are characters like McCree, Widowmaker, those are definitely hit scan characters that take a lot of skill. But there's so much diversity in the type of characters you can play. I know people who hate first-person shooters who love Overwatch.
Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that comes from like for me, like when I played TF2, I have like 130 hours in it, and I only played with friends. I only ever played with a big group of friends that we all played on like special type server things. But every time I played Medic. I played a little bit of other stuff. I played Pyro, which is, not a hit scan character, not a character that's going to be, at range or doing any other types of shooting stuff. And I played Demo. Like, I played all stuff that was, either up close and it's in your face and you don't have to worry about hitting stuff, or it's kind of like predicting things, which is what I've always been really good at, like predicting movement and like timing things. So like that's why in Overwatch the only DPS I can really play is Pharah, because it's all about predicting and getting splash damage, and I'm really good with Junkrat. And it's like I got in the game and like I was like, okay, when I get Overwatch, the first thing I want to do is I want to learn how to play Roadhog. I don't play Roadhog very much. I play Reinhardt and all the supports and Mei, and like I love it because it's like you don't have to hit things. You can just heal or tank or get in someone's face and punch them in the face with bullets.
It's great too. I think
that makes no sense, but
part of the reason I've played so much of it is it's also like I am good at hit scan, but it's also there's just some nights where I literally just don't want to play hit scan. So those are the nights where I'll just pick Mercy or I'll pick Reinhardt, and it's like I don't have to worry about hit scan. I just stand here with a giant shield in front of me, and good luck getting past me, guys.
Exactly. And like moving on to a different game, but I think would still probably I mean, I guess it still counts as first-person shooter. Well, no, sorry, it would be third-person shooter. Ratchet and Clank. I played a lot of this year. The new Ratchet and Clank game. And that was interesting because like I never played the very first one. I played a little bit of the second, played the third, played the fourth, and then this one came out, and I still haven't beat it. But I love how it's the weird take on shooting games where it has all the different strange weapons and like there's a gun that shoots a big disco ball and it makes everyone in a radius dance and they can't do anything for the period of time that it's out there. And there's a weapon that it's Mr. Zarkon, and it just puts a little guy that follows you around, and he has hilarious little voice lines like that he talks and stuff, and it's fantastic. But like it's there needs to be a lot more variation on the shooter games because there's a lot of the big main ones like Halo and Call of Duty. They were always about like it's all hit scan, and if you can't do it, you're kind of screwed. You're never gonna really enjoy it outside of campaign because in multiplayer you're just gonna get your shit handed to you. And then Overwatch comes along. You had TF2, Ratchet and Clank while it was solo. I remember Deadlocked. I can't remember. There was some multiplayer stuff for that one. And it was like, it had variation on the first-person shooter stuff. It had variation on the whole, like, well, you're using an assault rifle and you gotta get your shots to basically all be headshots and, things like that.
So, Chess, what's another game this year that you played this year that you really enjoyed?
God, there's so many! That's the problem. There's so fucking many.
There is.
I mean, XCOM and Fire Emblem are probably going to be the quickest picks I can think of off the top of my head right now. Like, XCOM Enemy Unknown, originally released in like 2011, I think. And then Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates I all played this year. It has been a good year for strategy games. Also this year, I got back into Railroad Tycoon 3. And
go ahead.
That game was still really good.
Yeah.
Like, I can still want to spend 3 hours at a time playing that game. It's really good.
I played the Roller Coaster Tycoon series the most myself, which is part of the thing that's exciting me about this year. I haven't been able to get it yet, but Planet Coaster came out this year, which is a game that looks phenomenal.
I hear so many good things about Planet Coaster.
Yeah, I've watched so many hours of Twitch on that game. It's such a fun game to watch people play because you just build such ridiculous things.
Oh god, yeah, and the fact that in that game you can actually put objects on top of objects on top of objects, and it's very silly what you can come up with. You can make your own decor out of other decor, like the giant pillar of torches that I've seen people do, like tiki torches that are all connected, and it's just a trail of tiki torches that are only sprouting out of one singular tiki torch in the ground. It looks very fun, and I never really got too much into Roller Coaster Tycoon. My biggest tycoon was Zoo Tycoon Complete Collection. I adored that game. I've sunk many, many, many hours into that game when I was younger, and I could probably still play it again today. And SimCity 4, or not SimCity 4, sorry, SimCity 2000
was so good.
I played it. It was so good. In my opinion, it was the last good SimCity.
I would probably agree.
It was very, very fantastic. I liked it.
So, Jess.
Question. I have a question, actually, for Autumn and for you.
Sounds good.
Do you two have a problem getting into the Sims games?
No.
I've never tried.
You get into them really easily?
I can get into them very easily.
Okay.
I never owned one
like
myself.
The Sims, Sims 3, Sims 4, like the
Yes.
numbered Sims games.
I never owned it myself. My cousins owned it. I played a shit ton of Sims 3.
Okay.
Because when I was, my biggest thing is the fact that, you can build your house. And for one of my favorite things I used to do when I was younger was I used to draw out floor plans for houses. And I used to want to be an architect, and I still do a lot of interior design stuff, and I'm big on design. So the fact that I got to not only make a character that looked like me, but make that character live the life I perfectly want to do, I could make my character be an architect, I can make my character be a veterinarian, things I wanted to do in my life. And I get to build a house that is based off of a floor plan that I've made. And I can decorate it exactly how I want it. And I can have a budget and things like that. I love that stuff. I love it. And I get so into it. And then, of course, with Monster Factory and what they did with Sims, I could get into Sims again and make horrible monsters if I wanted to.
That's a series that I've never actually tried playing, but it's always kind of fascinated me. Because I do love that type of games. Like, I've played a ton of Minecraft, which, depending on how you play it, can't be similar. But the way I always play Minecraft is just build really cool structures and things like that. So that seems to scratch similar itches as far as the way you're talking about Sims.
How are we feeling?
Pretty good. I feel like there's one game you brought up, Fire Emblems, and it reminded me of a game I played very early this year that I've kind of forgotten about because of how much else I've played. But did either of you play Firewatch at all?
Yes.
No, I did not. But I'll let you finish. When you guys finish talking about Firewatch, there's a game I want to bring up. So go on, talk about Firewatch, which I will say, while I've never played it, looks amazing. So beautiful.
Firewatch is
It's probably got my favorite art style for out of games this year. I think Firewatch takes my favorite.
Yeah, it's probably really close up there for me too. Firewatch was a super beautiful game. The story, to me personally, felt a little bit more tropey and normal than I expected it to. There was kind of like the story tries to fake you into believing it's going to go somewhere else, and then it ups just being a story kind of like most other games you've played in some ways. But there are some amazing developments. Like in the first 5 minutes, like the first 5 minutes of that game is literally like a text adventure game where you have to just pick these decisions you made in this relationship that you had with another person. And like either way, whatever you pick, it ends up terribly, and you end up going out to be a fire watcher in the middle of nowhere, USA, basically. But those first 10 minutes were pretty powerful as far as how I felt about it. What did you think about the story?
I thought that it was really fun. I enjoyed that it did that like mystery fake out. Like it really tries to build that game into a mystery. About kind of halfway through, it starts doing this, and then it doesn't necessarily pay off in the way that you would expect. And I think it's a really good way to do that story because it ends up being quite a bit more normal. Like I enjoy this aspect of like normalcy that it ended up having in the end.
Yeah.
Because it starts out like a very, very abnormal kind of downtrodden story a little bit, and then it turns into something a little bit more normal, a little bit more hopeful.
I think
I like that outcome of Firewatch a little bit more.
I do like the mystery in some ways. I think my biggest problem might honestly be the way I played with Delilah. So basically, most of that game is spent talking to a woman who's in another tower. And the way I played it, like I flirted with her the whole game. And I know there's options not to flirt with her, which I think might have made it feel less like every other video game to me, because it felt like the way I played it felt like just another love story playing out with like an ending that doesn't actually go anywhere because, you know, it almost felt like we don't have the budget to have this ending go anywhere, so it won't.
I don't know that I agree with that. I think that Camposanto told a story that really worked and really kind of like it worked for me, and it worked in that again, it went from kind of an abnormal, weird story to something a little bit more normal and forced you to kind of like think about what you were doing out there, and then you would return to your normal life, essentially, was the end.
Did you spend the game flirting with Delilah, or how did you handle your talking with her?
I think it was like on occasion, but I mostly tried to like play her as a friend.
I can totally see how that would honestly increase your enjoyment of the game. It's probably how I should have played it, but I just didn't even think about it while I was doing it.
Maybe it's worth reevaluating, like going back to it and having another look.
Yeah, I totally think so. It's a game I do want to play through again some other time. I mean, the thing about that game is definitely,
and they've just added like that free roam stuff too.
The thing
and the director's commentary.
Oh, I bet director's commentary, but that sounds great. The thing about that game is definitely the art style, and the minimalism of it was super great. Like, it's a video game that doesn't put a giant HUD on your screen, which is just so refreshing.
It puts nothing on your screen. You have a reticle to like point out where the center of the screen is so you can interact with things better, and that's it.
Yeah. And there are some frustrating parts. Like, I think the part when I was trying to leave at the end of the game, like, I couldn't find some of the areas because it's basically like you have to look for this thing that's painted to figure out where you're supposed to be going, which can become slightly frustrating. But it definitely was better more than it was worse, because like some things I hate, like I played some of the Titanfall 2 multiplayer beta, and like there's just shit everywhere on your screen in Titanfall 2, and I'm just like, well, this is just too much. Like, let's back it down a little bit.
All right. I think that might actually do it for our end of year wrap up, unless either of you have something to add.
Nope. I want to bring up something like so the one other game, I've played a lot of RuneScape this year. I've played a lot of Overwatch this year, and I played a lot of other games this year. Two games that I recommend, though, that I say are the best games I've played this year. While one is a little bit silly, and that it's Hexcells. Hexcells is a kind of a weird take on Minecraft, not Minecraft, Minesweeper. It's fantastic, but the best game I've played this year, I sat down and I played it in one go, and it's a wonderful game by the same people who made Dear Esther, which I loved Dear Esther. The Chinese Room put out a game called Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and while there are a few things that I had some weird issues with, is entirely nothing regarding the story or the gameplay. It was just some, just kind of a few little quirks that I think were just a little odd. Beautiful game. Fantastic story. Did not take any of the turns I expected it to. It had several twists that were amazing. I know, Harley, you said you played a little bit of it, but didn't get too far into it. I know, Jessica, I don't think you've played it yet. And
nope. I really want to, though.
Need to play it. It's fantastic. The story is just amazing. And while it didn't come out this year, it came out at the end of 2015. When I played that game, I was blown away. And like I said, it took turns I did not expect it to. And I definitely suggest everyone should play that game. Now, I will say there are some weird things as far... I know, Harley, I think you said you had this problem about not knowing where to go. Because while it is kind of a partially free roam, there is like... there's some like voice clips and stuff like that help give depth to the story that aren't necessarily on the story itself. There's some weird issues. All I can say is follow the light. It will always take you where you need to go.
I would say I totally agree with what you're saying about that game. I have not gotten a chance to beat it yet because life's been kind of hectic. But when I played it, the first couple hours I put into it even felt amazing. It's a game like it's a game that has this really eerie feeling to it, and unlike most games that try to do that, it does it in broad daylight, which is one of the most fascinating things to me about that game. Is it's not trying to creep you out with shadows or darkness. It's just like, here's this town in broad daylight, and it just feels weird as heck to be here.
Exactly. And, you know, like, I've seen a lot of things, a lot of people say this, and as someone who, I'm kind of have been pretty bad about it lately, as someone who writes and used to write a lot, one thing people always mention is the fact that why is black always seen as bad and white always seen as good? Like, everyone always, you know, equates the bad and evil and scariness to darkness, and light being this pure, wonderful sense. In this game, they turn it on its head. Everything's in bright daylight. There's only a couple scenes that are dark, and there's some stuff that has to do in nighttime, but even then it's still bright, and it still fills you with this sense of eeriness, and it's very empty, and it handles it all so well. And not once is anything dark in the game. There's a lot of weird story stuff. I don't want to talk about it too much because spoilers.
Yeah, it's very easy game to spoil, I would say.
Yeah, but it's
worth playing.
Play it,
yeah,
please.
Play it.
Very worth.
It's a game that for some reason in the Game Press got kind of mediocre reviews, which I didn't understand. It's a game, like, I can't think of another game I've played that feels like that game. Much like some of the other games we talked about this time. Like, it feels very original in what it's doing.
I think what everyone has an issue with is what most people always say, and people need to just deal with it, but people seem to have issues with games that could be considered walking simulators.
Oh, yeah. F that.
And I say screw that, because even games that aren't full of a lot of action, the story is so worth it.
Like, games...
Yeah, you would miss out on the best of, like, games as a medium if you were to dismiss games where you just walk around and that's your primary interaction with the world. Like, you would seriously miss out on the best of the medium.
Games
exactly,
originated as very basic simulator. It's like something people forget, but like you used to literally just play text adventure games. Like that was our first experience with a lot of video games.
Exactly. And it's entirely derived around story first and foremost. Even games that are just nothing but action and it's shooting, and they all still have story.
Yeah.
You can't have a game without story in a way. I mean, unless it's like some sort of just a simple puzzle game. I mean, Mario has story to it. Fucking Doom has story, Call of Duty has story, Halo has story.
Overwatch
Everything
has story, even though it's
to
multiplayer
it.
only.
Overwatch has story. Okay.
I'm not willing to say that Overwatch has story when it's all supplementary.
It's not.
Yeah,
all
I will say
supplementary,
Overwatch
though,
is kind of
it's not in the
is,
game.
Yeah, it's not in the game itself. Overwatch has a lot of story, but it's in outside content as far as like animations and comics and things like that.
But I've literally,
and while Overwatch itself has a lot of story, unless you go and listen to a lot of the voice lines from characters, there's not enough story in the game. Like me and Jess both agree that there should be a story mode.
Well, this is what I'm talking about in Overwatch, though, is I've literally only ever watched digital shorts other than play the game. And to me, the story comes from the voice lines. It is something that is picked up much slower than other games. But if you pay attention to what each character is saying to each other, you learn so much about the universe. You read the posters on the wall or the newspapers or anything like that. That's so much depth buried there.
Different, though, because that's the world. You are learning about the world. There's world building going on, but there's no story being told. It's just a lot of world building, which leads into the void.
But as
far as like the raw context of the game is concerned, in terms of like the world existing, like that the voice lines and the interactions between the characters really build up that world and build up the story that takes place in the cinematics. But there's nothing in the game still. There's still just like there's a lot of world building, but there's no actual storytelling going on.
Actually, you know what? I actually can disagree with that.
Okay.
I especially with the introduction of Eichenwald, but
Again, though,
stuff that
that's
takes
the world
place
telling
in.
the story, though,
But I
isn't
think
it? Like,
But it's
Or,
still
sorry,
telling the story.
we're kind of disagreeing
yes,
on
I
what we
will say
see
it
in
is a-
story in games. I think is kind of what's going on here because I see the world building going on there as what the story of that game is. Personally,
Because like you have all the stuff about the Shimada brothers. I mean, like on Hanamura, you can see the arrows that are fired from the digital shorts of Shimada brothers on Hanamura. You can see both the arrows. You can see the sword that's looked at in the short. In King's Row, there's voice lines. Like there's only certain voice lines that only happen from certain characters on certain maps. Like yesterday, I heard a voice line from Torbjorn I've never heard because I've never seen Torbjorn played on Nepal on Shrine, and he has a voice line in there that talks about that kind of adds some more story to him and shows how much of a racist he is. But I mean, like, it puts a lot more story because there's so many different things that it talked about of the story. But you have to have these certain characters in certain spots, and it is very slow to pick up on. But you remember it.
And I mean, I think I agree that there could be more to it, but I think if you compare Overwatch to other AAA games, like to me, Overwatch has a better story than a ton of AAA games that have come out in the past 5-10 years. To be honest, like especially something like Destiny, where the Destiny storyline is literally 100% in the grimoire. Like if you want to understand Destiny at all, you have to read their silly online website to understand it. Where if you play Overwatch, it will take you a long time, but you will pick up what's going on. You will understand the characters more. There's the line that Diva, I don't remember what map it's on, but Diva has this line where she just says, "The destruction caused by the Omnics here reminds me of home." And like the way that the voice actress delivers that line, like it makes me almost cry every time I hear it because it's just so freaking emotional.
Yeah, that's on Volskaya.
Yeah, I think
I remember it.
I think so, yeah. And like with Zarya on I think it's on King's Row. She says, the humans here are fools to trust the Omnics, and that that puts into the whole stuff about the Omnic crisis. In the skins, even like there's Omnic crisis Bastion, there's Griefheart, Reinhardt, that especially like I said with the Eichenwald edition, it added a lot more story about talking about the Omnic crisis and a lot of the stuff that happened because it's scattered throughout. You see the throne where the king was there and he died, and it talks a lot about the story.
And I know,
but it's a very slow learning of
but
it.
It's like the way I tend to see story in games is as explicit narrative, which Overwatch lacks entirely. Again, but like in the context of the game, there is no explicit narrative within Overwatch. There's that world building though, which like you've been talking about for the past little bit, it's really impressive what they've done with the voice lines and construction of all the levels. Little details in those levels do build out the world of Overwatch, but there's still no explicit narrative in the game, which is a huge bummer to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of that is because the history of Overwatch, of course, is it was originally supposed to be an MMO. It was Project Titan. It was going to be Blizzard's next MMO. And then mid-making that game, they canceled it because the project wasn't going anywhere. And then they took the core concepts from Project Titan and turned it into Overwatch, which is, I think, part of the reason why it has such a rich story is because it was based in this huge story game. And so they've been able to just draw out all these parts that were already partially formed when they were making the previous game.
I think that the future of Overwatch would really benefit from having explicit narrative, because there are two reasons. One is a game design reason. By having an explicit narrative mode, you could theoretically force the player to play specific characters to go through specific scenarios, which gives players an opportunity to learn all these new heroes. Like, even if they were to release like a chapter at a time over the course of the year, like where you played, like, this is the Hanzo chapter, this is the Bastion chapter, whatever. Like, I think that would allow players to learn those characters in a way that also, like, fleshed out the Overwatch universe in a way that I believe it desperately needs.
I agree that,
and two, it just has the benefit of like adding that explicit narrative and giving that extra level of depth to like people who tend to play only like explicitly narrative focused games.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that they could do it. It's hard to tell if that's what Blizzard wants to do with the game. I think a lot of their story may come from the supplementary materials we talked about. They have comics that they're doing now. There will probably be more in-depth comics at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an animated Overwatch movie at some point, which of course is very different. It's hard to tell if they want to put a story mode into this game, but I mean, I would love it. I mean, I love the bits and pieces we've already gotten, so I would absolutely love it. And I know that you want to wrap up the show here, so I will just quickly bring out two things that I wanted to mention real quick, which the first one is RuneScape this year celebrated its 15th anniversary of the game. January will actually mark the 16th year of the game. And I don't want to talk about it a bunch. We talked about it a lot on the last show, but I just want to say that if you are an MMO fan or a video game fan in general who wants a game that isn't focused around combat, RuneScape is definitely a place to look. It is a game that takes a lot of time to progress in, but it is a game that has such a diversity in what you can do in it. It is also a game that since 2002 has had a gender fluid trans character in it, which is amazing to me. There's literally a character in that game called the Makeover Mage, and they're where you go to switch genders in the game if you are a character, if you want to change your character's gender, and randomly every 5 minutes they will just like switch between their quote unquote male and female form. You know, I don't really like using those words exactly because fuck the binary, but just to make it a bit easier to explain. And I think it's amazing to see that diversity in a game as old as RuneScape.
Mm-hmm. And recently there was another trans character added into RuneScape with one of the quests.
There are quests that devolve that more. And another thing that's amazing about RuneScape is their quest system is a bit different than other MMOs, where it's not like here's a fetch quest. Most RuneScape quests have like very deep, well-told lore stories to them, as hard mechanics, which is something that people miss because the quests have high requirements at times to do, but it's a fantastic part of the game.
Oh, definitely. And like, as someone who's played RuneScape for literally almost half my life, like, I've spent at least a third of my life playing RuneScape. Like, I've played it more than any other MMO I have ever played, combined. And I recommend it for anyone who likes MMOs in, like, social aspects, because there is something in there for everybody.
Totally agree.
All right.
And
I think that's going to do it for us.
So I just want to...
Thank you for listening to this exceptionally long episode. Harley, what were you going to say?
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to something that is not video game related, but the end of this year has been a stressful time for me. My grandfather has been fighting a lot with health issues and passed away recently. And there's an album that came out by Leonard Cohen called You Want It Darker, which deals a lot with end-of-life thinking and things like that. And I've been listening to it a ton in the past few months while going through that. And Leonard Cohen is an artist who himself died this year. And so I just wanted to real quickly say that if you are a music fan, check out Leonard Cohen's You Want It Darker. It's one of the best albums ever made.
Absolutely. Autumn, do you have anything you want to give a quick shout out to?
No, I because I'm on your podcast, I can't really give a shout out to you. But shout out, watch, listen to PauseCast. No, yeah, I think that this year has been a very hard, stressful year for a lot of people. And for those who unfortunately have not made it through the year. It's sad that, we lost a lot of people.
We salute you.
But the people who have made it through this year, whether you have struggled through it or whether you have skated on by without an issue, you go. 2017 hopefully will be a better year, and I can only think of how great the improvements are going to be both in and out of video games for 2017. Hopefully we'll all grow as people. I know I've grown a lot as a person in 2016. So definitely all I can say is, what a year for video games.
Shout out to video games. Thank you very much, video games. Thank you to all the developers who are out there working really hard right now even on making the games that are going to come out over the next year.
And we still don't know what Death Stranding is about.
Nobody will ever know what, I don't think. Okay, one final question to wrap everything up. What is the game you are most looking forward to in 2017? Whether it's a game that you just have in your library and you want to play it, or whether it's something that's releasing next year. What are you looking forward to in 2017?
Harley, I'll let you go first.
Oh my god, I was going to say you go first.
I'll go first, because I have something. Persona 5, definitely. Looking forward to that. Night in the Woods, also, but if I had to choose the thing I am most looking forward to, it's going to be Persona 5.
Oh my god, I literally just learned about Night in the Woods, and that looks freaking adorable. I love cats. Give me
I've
cats
been
all the
following
time.
its development for the last year. It's looking really great. It comes out in January, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So it's right at the beginning.
Yeah, it's going to be first thing that we get in 2017. It's going to be solid.
I would say for myself, as you can tell from the beginning of the show, I am on 2 RuneScape podcasts. So honestly, the game that I am most looking forward to is the RuneScape expansions that are coming out in the next year. RuneScape recently has switched up their development cycle, and they're going to be releasing larger content packs all at one time rather than weekly updates. Well, they're still going to be doing weekly updates, but RuneScape is a game that's always gotten a ton of small updates, and now they're going to be doing bigger ones. This next year, we're actually going to get a zone that has been in the game for the past 10 years, but we have been unable to go to. So I'm excited to see that.
I kind of have to agree with Harley. I am excited a lot for RuneScape. I'm very excited because this is technically the first expansion RuneScape's ever gotten, correct?
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So, while there's always been, new cities and stuff added, this is, big. But probably for me, the game I'm most looking forward to, because I can't think of any games that are coming out that I want to play. I'll probably find something that'll come out that I'll want to play, but Overwatch! I really want to play more Overwatch. I enjoy competitive a lot. It gives me a lot of heartache and grief, but I love it so, and I am looking forward to more Overwatch and RuneScape, and I want to say, I do have a shout out. Shout out to Harley for getting me back into RuneScape. Thank you, because it has brought me a lot of joy, and I've enjoyed it a lot.
Shout out to Autumn for giving me a fantastic friend to hang out with while I play RuneScape.
All right. Autumn, I'll let you go first. Where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Tumblr and Twitter at Malibu Threat. That's MALIBUTHRETT. You can find me on Twitch at Kyanite_princess. That's KYANITE_princess. And if you would like to check out my photography, you can check it out at autumnwilliamsphotography.tumblr.com. Okay.
And Harley, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me drunk on Twitter at TheNextFan. You can find me streaming video games on Twitch at Queen of Blaze. And you can find me in RuneScape at Harley Q Win.
Can you say your Twitter again? We may have laughed over it.
Yeah, I think we did.
TheNextFan on Twitter.
All right. You can find me on the internet personally. You can find me pretty much anywhere as Cockatiel Cutie. That is Twitter, Tumblr, kind of etc. You can also email the show, pausecastshow@gmail.com. We still have a copy of Moon Hunters and Dragon's Dogma available. If you send an email giving us a dragon fact if you want to win, your favorite dragon if you want to win Dragon's Dogma, and a moon fact if you would like to win yourself a copy of Moon Hunters. The first person to email us will still get those. If you'd like the show, please consider rating or reviewing it on iTunes. It helps us out a lot if we get those ratings and reviews in. Shout out to everyone for listening to this show as it's kind of evolved over the course of the year. We appreciate you hanging in there. On behalf of Mark Hanna, as well as on the behalf of Autumn and Harley, I'd like to wish you all a very happy New Year's, and here's to 2017, y'all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening to this 24th episode of PauseCast, and we will see you next week.